People walked past him every single day. Some looked away, some clutched their bags tighter, and a few, just a few, offered a small coin or a glance of pity. But no one ever really saw him. To them, he was just another homeless man sitting in front of a massive steel and glass building in downtown Nairobi. What they didn't know was that the building he sat in front of every day, the towering bank with its glossy logo and guarded gates, he used to own it. His name was Samuel Otieno, but most people didn't know that. They just called him Old Sam. Ragged coat, weathered face, unshaven beard, and silent eyes. Eyes that had seen too much. Eyes that remembered every brick in that bank, because he was the one who had laid its foundation, both literally and figuratively. But now he sat outside its gates with nothing but a tattered bag and a cardboard sign that simply read, "Time is the real currency." Years ago, Samuel wasn't a beggar. He was a visionary. Born in a small village in Kenya, he was the kind of boy who sold peanuts to buy books, who walked barefoot miles just to attend school. He believed in numbers, in systems, in building something that would last longer than him. In his 20s, he left his village with nothing but a suitcase, a rusted bicycle, and a dream. He worked odd jobs, carrying cement on construction sites during the day and studying business under dim candlelight at night. People laughed when he told them he wanted to start a bank. A village boy like you? A bank? They didn't understand. He didn't want to just hold money. He wanted to create a system where people like his mother, who had been denied loans all her life, could finally build something. Years passed, struggles, sleepless nights, and then he did it. Samuel founded Unity Trust Bank. It started in a one-room office, no bigger than a street kiosk, but his principles, transparency, integrity, and community trust, spread like wildfire. He wasn't just a banker, he was a movement. Farmers, market women, mechanics, people who'd been rejected by traditional banks came to him. He gave them small loans, financial advice, and more importantly, respect. In 10 years, Unity Trust had branches in 6 cities. Samuel was named one of Africa's most inspiring entrepreneurs. People shook his hand at conferences. Government officials praised him. His face was on magazine covers. But then, everything changed. Power attracts power, and not everyone liked that a poor village boy had built a financial empire rooted in ethics. Samuel was approached by investors, big names, international firms. They wanted to scale Unity Trust, add services, reduce microloans, add digital services, reduce microloans, restructure staff, maximize shareholder value. But Samuel refused. This bank exists for people, not profit, he told them. And that's when the war began. They came for him silently, first through rumors, then audits, then false accusations. One morning, headlines screamed, Unity Trust CEO under investigation for fraud. Samuel was stunned. He had never taken a bribe, never moved a single shilling illegally. But in the world of power, innocence is irrelevant when money is involved. Bank accounts were frozen. His closest board members betrayed him. Even his lawyer turned on him. He lost the company. He lost his home. He lost everything. And worst of all, people believed the lies. In just a few months, Samuel went from giving keynote speeches to sleeping on benches in city parks. He had nowhere to go, no family left to turn to, no money to fight legal battles. But he wasn't bitter, not yet. He believed the truth would eventually come out. He believed in justice. But justice doesn't always come fast, especially when you're poor again. Years passed. People forgot his name. New CEOs took over the bank. Billboards changed, and Samuel became invisible. He would sit quietly across the street from the bank he built, not to beg, but to watch. To remind himself it was once real. And some nights, when the city went quiet, he would whisper, "They can take the bank, but not my soul." It was on a Thursday afternoon, in the middle of a blistering Nairobi heatwave, when something changed. A little boy, maybe 8 years old, walked up to Samuel. He wasn't like the others. He didn't look away. He didn't look disgusted. He looked curious. The boy handed him half a sandwich and said, "My dad says you're the man who used to own that time. My dad says you're the man who used to own that bank." Samuel looked up, stunned. "Your dad?" The boy nodded. "He said you helped him start his shop. He said without you, we wouldn't have a house." Samuel took the sandwich, hands trembling. Tears welled in his eyes for the first time in years. "Tell your father, I remember him," he whispered. The boy smiled and ran off. For the first time in a long time, Samuel felt seen. That single moment awakened something deep inside him, a forgotten fire, a sense of purpose. That night, Samuel walked into a local shelter. He asked if he could volunteer. The manager laughed. "You want to help? You're one of us." Samuel replied quietly, "Not forever." He started helping organize supplies, sweeping floors, mentoring younger men at the shelter. And slowly, people began to notice him, not as a beggar, but as a guide. He had nothing, but gave everything he could.
One day, he helped a struggling young man write a business proposal for a roadside snack stall. Another day, he sat with a woman and taught her how interest rates worked so she wouldn't get cheated. The staff began to ask, "Who is this guy?" One of them Googled him. Their jaws dropped. There it was, articles from years ago. Pictures of Samuel standing in boardrooms, speaking at UN panels, holding awards. The shelter manager brought him coffee the next morning and said, "Why didn't you ever tell us who you were?" Samuel just smiled and said, "Sometimes the world listens more when you speak without a title." Word spread. A journalist visited the shelter for a feature on urban poverty. He sat down with Samuel, expecting a sad story, but walked away stunned by the wisdom and grace he encountered. The article went viral. The headline? "The Homeless Banker, How a Forgotten Hero is Changing Lives from the Streets." People were shocked. Outrage erupted online. Where is the justice for this man? Why hasn't he been cleared? Is this how we treat heroes? The old case against him was reopened. And this time, the truth had a voice. Whistleblowers came forward. Documents surfaced. It was exposed that Samuel had been framed by corporate raiders who later sold the bank at a massive profit. He was exonerated. Publicly. Completely. But Samuel didn't celebrate. He just quietly returned to the shelter the next day, and kept helping. Soon, his former partners and even the government offered him new positions. Return as CEO. Take over a financial board. Join international banking committees. Everyone expected him to say yes. But Samuel declined every offer. Instead, he launched a small foundation from within the shelter. He called it True Wealth, where the currency was knowledge, community, and dignity. It helped homeless individuals get back on their feet with financial education, microloans, and mentorship. He didn't rebuild a bank of brick and steel. He built something far stronger. A bank of hope. And people came, not for loans, but for purpose. Years after his fall, Samuel was invited to give a speech at Unity Trust Bank, the same one that once threw him out. They had rebranded, remodeled, and replaced every trace of his legacy. But they couldn't erase his roots. As he stepped on stage, the entire hall stood in silence. No one blinked. Many had never seen the man behind the scandal, let alone the truth. He walked to the podium slowly and said just one sentence, "I built this place for the people, and today, I forgive those who forgot that." Applause. Tears. Healing. He walked out without accepting a single cent. Because some victories are not about money. Today, Samuel Otieno is not on magazine covers. He doesn't own skyscrapers. But his foundation now supports over 40 community shelters and has helped thousands of people rebuild their lives. He walks with a slight limp now. His hair is silver. But when he enters a room, people listen. Not because he's rich. Not because he's famous. But because he reminds them of what really matters: character, integrity, and resilience. He once lost everything. But from the ashes, he rose stronger. Not by taking revenge, but by choosing redemption, and every morning, he still walks by the bank. Not in bitterness, but in peace. Because Samuel Otieno proved something very few ever do: you can steal a man's wealth, but you can never steal his purpose. Stay motivated, stay inspired, and let's grow together. AfricanTales Haven.